If you can stop talking for 10 seconds, that would be fantastic. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
Hey, Biff, what did the analog clock say to the digital clock?
And what did the analog clock say to the digital clock, Jacques?
Look, no hands. Classic.
You know, it's a good thing. Like our, audience is like all freaking old because, like, if we actually had a real audience of young people, they would have no idea what you're talking about.
We'll get to that. Biff, what do you think Grogu, or for the uninitiated, Baby Yoda's second word is going to come? When do you think Baby Yoda will say his second word?
I don't know. When is his second word going to come?
Right after his first word. Yeah, it is. It's a thinker. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Carnival Personnel. This is Jacques.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
And that guy who blew out your eardrums was Biff.
Hello, everybody. It's your pal Joe. How are you? This is David Allen Boucher, Magic 106.7.
Oh man!
Nobody gets David Allen Boucher.
No,
you get
100. Kim Sweetie, our old friend from Fitchburg, man. That was her white noise machine before there was white noise machine. She went to bed with that guy every night for a decade. We were together.
Bedtime Magic, and now a little Chicago on Magic 106.7.
It's really funny. The other podcast I love, Complaints and Observation. He was in Australia for a month prepping for a new job, and he had a roommate at one point. And he was recording the podcast one room over. They was like staying at some like little inn, like a bed and breakfast type thing. And he was recording his podcast with that voice, and he kept referencing it and saying the same thing. Nobody knows who David, and I'm like, oh my God, I 100% know who that dude is. But it was great. Biff, speaking of, nobody listening, it is funny because, over the last few sideshows, we've had younger and funnier comics jumping on. It is not only are our numbers going up, our median age is going down, which is really nice.
Maybe you should consider having more younger and funnier jokes too.
I mean, now between the 26-year-olds jumping on doing our podcast, and let's say, the blind squirrel and Mr. Taylor, our median age is down to like 60. See, anyways, shut up, Jacques. You know what? No, but it's been great. And a couple folks said, hey, maybe I can jump on Sunday. So I'll see. No, and I've enjoyed having, these funnier people on and talking comedy. It has gone well. Speaking of gone well, I'm putting him on the spot right now. It was a long time coming, but Joe unearthed a stand-up of his, 95, and I'm telling you, and I've promised him that I would never play anything, and I came so close. I had the opportunity to use one of his bits the other night, and driving home, I'm like, oh my God, it was right there. I mean, first of all, as we've talked about, it's so funny that so much of my stand-up that lands, it's, I'm going to say of the percentage Joe's contributed to my stand-up routines overall the last couple of years, probably somewhere between 5 and 8% of what I've written. No, seriously, 5 or 8%. 75% of the laughs come from that 5 or 8%. You know, it's like he's, you know, anyways. So we're doing
the crash landing is still a landing, is what I'm saying.
We're doing the podcast with the guy, Paul, like last week, and Paul Burke. It was great. I mean, it was one of those, oh man, an almost 2-hour sideshow, but it flew by. It was funny. And it's true. You know, Paul has a background. He has a college degree from a top tier university and designing boxes for companies, you know, and he starts talking about he's hating the corporate world. He's hating his job. He's hating these 12-hour shifts. He's hating working for a company that catches on fire because they're a paper company that decides let's leave paper, you know, next
I told you we shouldn't have had a sawdust room.
He's couch, you know, so he's semi-homeless couch surfing, and Joe makes a joke about, well, you know, if you're going to be homeless, you know, that's the greatest background to have. I mean, your cardboard box houses are going to be like palaces, you know, they're going to be like, you know, all the other homeless people are going to be jealous of, and just Paul doesn't say anything, just the look of like, oh fuck, that's really incredibly funny. And he's like, yeah, Joe, I'm letting you know I'm stealing that. And Joe's like, I was gonna throw it out, but I thought you must have used it by now. And it's like, and I told Paul, it's like, yeah, welcome to the club of toiling at open mic every night and working your ass off and having Joe swoop in and off the top of his dome just throw out the best line you're gonna have maybe ever. So here it is. It's Joe, 18-year-old Joe. He unearthed a tape recently. You know, there's a little problems with.
Okay,
so
it's audio only.
It's audio only. It's audio only.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm gonna say it. He paints quite a picture. Like, you know, you can see in your mind's eye. I don't know if you want to talk about it much, Joe, but I almost used one of your bits from that show the other night, and the whole hour and a half ride home, I'm like, you know what? The show sucked. The 5 comics who went up, it was at a pizza place. It was a gorgeous day. And everybody's apologizing to us like, we usually have 3 times as many people here. But who wants to be inside at a brick oven pizza house, a place called The Brick, when it's the first?
So this is in LA or
no? This was in Concord, New Hampshire for me. Just Dover. Thank you. See you, Joe. Anyway, Joe, you want to speak of your tape? You know details, but you know.
May I speak? I didn't know. I'm a guest on this podcast. I was waiting for my opportunity to chime in. So,
but enough about me. What about you?
What do you think about me? So yeah, the tape that I did, it was 2 sets. One was at like, what was it? Dick Doherty's. Dick Doherty had like a showcase, and I was weaseled into this. I was an open micer, and these guys that were doing the showcase were a step above open micers. So I think there was some resentment, like, who's this fuck, and how did he get in there? But I had an in, and I did a set, and it was up in Saugus, Massachusetts. I think it was at Kowloon, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
I think it's the one where your parents came to see me and then they didn't pay the check, so I had they walked out. You know that story.
I'm blanking on it.
No, your mother tells that story almost like every year. It's like a perennial story. Every time she sees me, or had seen me for like, you know, years after that, she talks about how she and Gordon accidentally left the bar.
You forgot to say accidentally. So I'm pointing out to the listener that Joe didn't use the finger quote signs accidentally.
So yeah, I had to pick up their tab, which was fine because, you know, I deserve it. So no, but
at 18 years old, you have to pick up the tab. Nice.
Well, you know, I was making a good living. Okay. I didn't have as much overhead back then as I do now.
He was a manager at KB Toys. He was making shit happen.
Yes, exactly. And the Tickle Me Elmo.
You're doing better than KB Toys is. So,
what's to make you think I didn't take them down from the inside? Anyway, I did like a bit on. I did my Gilbert Gottfried routine. I did a bit about, there was a real company called Charles River Apparel, which was just a clothing line, but back then the Charles River was known as a cesspool because it was very polluted.
Love that dirty water.
Right. So I made bit about how, I can imagine what the fashion show would be like for the Charles River apparel. Okay, our next model is Mark. Mark is sporting a rusty shopping cart from Stop and Shop, and the pop tennis ball he's wearing makes a wicked good change purse. Thanks, Mark. I also use the R word. It was a different time. But the Gilbert Gottfried one, I think that the Gilbert Gottfried one was pretty decent.
It landed. The thing is, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but okay, Joe had talent. Joe
had
found
a ladder.
Talent.
We don't have to go down the rabbit hole.
He had real talent. Everything landed. And there's a local weather guy, Al Caprillion. Joe's been doing Al Caprillion impressions. And the thing is, he was a weatherman by the time Joe and I crossed paths. Al Caprillion never, quote unquote, made it. He was in the southern New Hampshire market. So if you live north of Boston, if you live from Boston north, UHF channels, you could get New Hampshire stations. And so he was on a New Hampshire UHF station, but he was such a unique voice and a unique pattern that anytime Joe busted it out, if you knew Al, it's first of all,
one of those guys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it was like a local celebrity that nobody did an impersonation of, and so I was sort of like the first. Andy Kaufman was credited as being the first Elvis impersonator. I might have been the first Al Caprillion impersonator in 1997. So, and maybe the last. Although, it did actually parlay into back in 2010 when the three of us got back together to do this like reunion show of our sketch comedy show. We actually got the real Al Caprillion to do a walk-on during the Al Caprillion bit. And we had a Coke. The punchline was that he was going to walk in and I was going to break character. I'm going to go, wow, Al Caprillion. And he was going to sucker punch me in the stomach. And it took some coaxing because he didn't really want to be seen punching somebody in the stomach on camera. So, but he played along and he was a good sport. And the weird thing is that when I did my impersonation, when I did that last bit of Al Caprillion, he was sitting in the studio, on the other side of the camera, watching me do him, which was peculiar, but it was fine. And, it never aired. So, but it's in my archives.
Now you know how Will Ferrell felt.
Yes, right. All those.
Do you have the video though? You have the actual
I think I might have. It actually might be on YouTube. So, anyways.
Oh wow.
The classic Al Caprillion impersonation that I did back in 1995 lives forever on YouTube, and you can Google that. Just look up Al Caprillion parody, and you'll see me break character real quick. It's basically it's me. It's like me doing my Jimmy Fallon impersonation of laughing throughout the entire sketch, and Jacques throwing pens at me. So yeah, good times. But enough about me. What do you think of me?
No, get back to the set. I mean,
and then the Gilbert Gottfried impersonation was me hosting the Gilbert Gottfried "Come On, I'm Dying Here" charity telethon, and it's a telethon, but not for any other charity, but for Gilbert Gottfried, what was my line? Sure, for the Salvation Army, your hands are cramped from writing all the checks. But for me, Gilbert Gottfried, a man who brought you laughter for decades, you can't so much as roll a quarter in my direction.
No, the bit I almost stole. So I'm looking at so there's 4 comics and the host off to my left. There's 10 people at the bar and scattered throughout a couple tables, eating their dinner. And I think a couple of them were painfully unaware there was going to be an attempt at a comedy show while they were eating it. It's like, oh, let's go eat in here, and just not ready for it.
Not in here, out here.
But
outside.
But well, that's the bit I almost used, because I'm like, in my head before I went up, I'm like, hey, that looks like a very long cord. The guys out back, no one's bringing the funny to them.
And it turned out that actually one of the people at the table was a girl I went to college with. So
Wow.
it was a peculiar circumstance. But anyways, yeah, it was some weak material, some okay material. It was my second or third time up. I killed, and then I went out on a high note, and I had never did stand up ever again.
And it is. It's
Literally drop the mic.
I it's one of those things. It's like, because sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm like, do I just find Joe funny? Am I Joe's audience of one these last like 30 years? It's like, no. When you hear other people hear that stuff, because when we had the show, and like I said, I've told the story a million times. When he came out to LA, we started shooting stuff, and everyone went like, yeah, Jacques right. It's not hype. This kid is funny. Which, by the way, I did not put on the rundown. So Joe sends me a skit the other day. Christopher Titus, his new wife has gotten a comedy a couple years ago. They were together. They've been together for a while, but she got a comedy a couple years ago. She's part of his podcast, and they did a comedy skit the other day that 75-80% of an old skit that Joe and I had, and 2000 and well, I know it was
2000 and
I know. I know it's before 2003 because the starter wife was in the skit.
No, I left LA in late 2000.
So you think they got a hold of your
was
it in the crease thing on YouTube and just kind of swiped it? That's what it's
and it was one of those skits. It was one of those skits where maybe I don't know, 6, 7, 7, 8 years ago. No, with Joe it was longer. Joe, when his now 23-year-old was old enough to access YouTube by himself, Joe's like, hey, I just got this crystal ball. There's going to be this thing called cancel culture in about 10 years. Can we take down some of the skits that are wildly inappropriate for 2011 that we did, 15 years ago? But one of the skits, and I don't know if you remember, Biff, we had a product called Bitch Be Quiet.
Oh, I vaguely remember. Yeah.
And essentially he does that, but instead of just being, just making women be quiet and aerosol spray that makes them be quiet, the whole punchline, it knocks them out.
It makes who be quiet, bitches? I'm just so the other day, I'm like, yeah, gosh, I wonder if it's one of the ones, because when YouTube started, I had a couple channels throwing things up there. Other people, some other place posted this like 15 years ago, but only has, may the force be with you, by the way, Biff, it hurt your sneeze. One other place pirated it and has half the skit up there, like not the payoff. And I'm like, oh, and then I look.
They have more views than you do.
So the point what Jacques is trying to make is that Christopher Titus recently posted a sketch with him and his wife Rachel Bradley, where they're doing a pharmaceutical ad called what is it? A Bitch Relax. It's called Bitch Relax, and it's basically a PMS medication. So it's basically telling the quote unquote bitch to quote unquote relax. I would say parallel thinking, possibly better thinking, funnier thinking. But I just posted.
How dare you? How dare you? It is not better. It is not funnier. Look, our spray came in 3 fresh scents. Did theirs?
But I think ours was also you could use it at a Nazi pep rally, didn't we? Is that the one?
Well, that was the whole. I mean that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, we're saying bitch be quiet, and we're being misogynistic, but we're really, the joke is the guy is really the asshole.
Yeah.
No, the whole idea is like it's like the tongue in cheek thing. It's like, no, the guy's really the asshole. Like that it's the meta thing.
I understand. Yeah, no, it was the early 2000s. No, here we can be racist if we can say racist things if we put it in the context of we're not racist. That character is racist and he's misogynistic.
Well, look, the new song that we've gone out with the last couple podcasts, it's one of those things. Like, if it's the new song, it's called Tucker, and it's a song from a fan's point of view of Tucker Carlson. It's a Proud Boy singing about his hero Tucker. No, and it is. And
so at some point did like the whole All in the Family premise like is no longer allowed, like, because that's what Archie Bunker is, right? Like he says all these awful things, and he can because he's Archie Bunker, and we all are supposed to judge him in a certain way, right? So
I think
is that no longer?
Yeah, when to further tangent, my wife works in drama with some college kids, and the college kids of today, at least the college kids that she worked with, they don't get context. Like, context doesn't exist. And they're doing a show where there's a misogynistic character who gets his comeuppance in a dream sequence, and they play this out. And one of the people who never saw the show, only read the script, this is like pre-production, looking at it going, this is awful how they're treating this character. I mean, they're tying him up and torturing him, and what kind of people are these? Not realizing that they're getting revenge on an awful character, and he's really the villain in the story. So immediately they were outraged that this show was even going to be produced, because they were going to portray these people in this kind of fashion. And then so there's a disconnect, and there's a loss on, and I'm not saying all kids, but a lot of kids are losing the ability to sort of discern, sarcasm, or maybe it's just like not cool. I mean, obviously it's not cool anymore to say like dumb racist shit, even tongue in cheek.
Right.
Well, I mean, and that's the whole thing, but that was a joke at that. That wasn't even saying anything racist. It's like, here's the kind of people who would use this product. It was just, and it was one quick line. But but it's funny that, we're trying to be better. I'm trying to do stand up, and it's like every time there's a joke where 20 years ago, it'd be like, my wife is always nagging me. It's like, right. It's like, my wife never says I listen. It's like, or something like that. I was watching the Bruins game, but you have to turn it around and make, me the punchline.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yes, it's comedy is hard, right? Dying is easy. Is that what the term is?
But it is. It's funny because, when Joe sent it to me, and then we won't go down the litany. We've done it, like the number of places that have borrowed stuff from Joe and I before. It's like,
honestly, I think it really is paralleling, except for the one specific example you might have pointed out to me years and years ago.
Yeah, but how about the example of when the guy from the soup shows up and says, we got to come work for him. And it was the most.
That's the example I'm talking about.
Oh, no, the other one. When the SNL guys are like, oh, where'd you get the camera? Oh, we jacked it from the Lexington Access Cable Company. It's like, huh.
Well, guess what? Rachel Dratch went to Lexington High School.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like, okay, those are such typical characters, but it's like to reference. Anyways. It
was a coincidence.
Right.
You're not the only person that worked in Lexington.
Did she have a long, and that show, actually, Misty's Kitchen and Formal Edition, it's funny because years later we had Ross do skits on Joe and I had two shows, and Ross would do skits. At the time, I think he had just got it. He was no longer a doctoral student, but a PhD doctor at Harvard, and his roommate was the head entertainment writer for the Boston Phoenix, which was like the LA Weekly. It was big. And it's funny how many times they were called saying, oh, my God, I was just here at this meeting. And somebody's like, oh, Ross, I caught you on some show eating a banana in an elevator, and it's like, oh, my God, how did this person he did anyway. So it was fun.
I will say that one of the things I did see on the socials this week was about some comic who apparently does a lot of these open mic stuff and befriends a lot of up and coming comics, but apparently he's constantly stealing from these open mic people. Like when something hits, he'll just steal from, and so apparently he goes to these open mics, and then a week later stuff comes out as new stuff on his routine. So
a real piece of shit.
It's funny because that is the biggest no do, and it's funny because about 3 or 4 weeks ago it was an open mic and there's only like 5 or 6 of us at the end of the night, and I'm going up a second time and I'm like, okay, well, this is my favorite time, this is my opportunity, and there's a guy who I like who maybe I'll have Ian Sargent on, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna do Ian's routine in front of him now. And there's 4 or 5 people sitting there. There's a bartender. And I just start doing his whole routine. And other people are laughing. And he's like, and he was confused and flattered. It's like, oh, you're actually listening when it's one of those things. It's like, hey, is this actually landing? Not only is it landing, I know it well enough to do it back to you in front of you. Hey, remember when you were in the Beatles?
That was awesome.
And so that is great. And while we mentioned Saturday Night Live, so all season long, my cousin's been inviting me out. I haven't got a chance to go. Management and I were possibly going this weekend. Okay. And it's funny because I had said, to Jimmy, it's like, oh, because we won't see him. We won't see him till after the show. It's just the way it is.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I'm like, don't worry, because he's like, I'm sorry, I won't see you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, well, we'll get brunch tomorrow. We'll get brunch Sunday morning. Because, my sister went, they got brunch on her way out of town. Right. And he's like, oh, well, we can only do brunch if we don't go to the after party because the after party gets over at 6, but I don't have to, I don't have to go to that and we can make brunch plans. The look on my management's face of, I don't give a fuck about anything except the after party. Yeah. And which the one after party I went to, it's been told to me a number of times. I don't remember it. I was still in my drinking phase, and that's when I woke up with the Batman tattoo on my left shoulder that I don't recall getting. But my brother does. My brother was there, and a friend who I've had a precarious relationship with since 1986. She was there, and we went to the after party, and I guess I made Seth Meyers laugh uproariously, and part of that was scaring the shit out of Horatio Sands. Like, I don't remember what I did. Anyways, so things couldn't happen. We couldn't go this weekend, and the last show, I think, of the season, or the last tickets he's able to get, is on Mother's Day weekend.
Perfect.
Joe, why don't you tell Biff why that's perfect?
Ellen can't go.
She's going to be in Vegas with her 2 best friends. It's actually not Duran Duran. It's some big festival show with like 20 bands from like the 90s. It's like
the When We Were Young. No.
Yes, thank you. It's either an 80s or a 90s thing. Yeah. And they have like 10 one-hit wonders, and the headliner is a 2-hit wonder. It's like, looking down at those one-hit wonders, like, aha. Yeah. And so I felt bad because I have to call her and say, oh my God, I don't want, I won't go. If she's upset, she goes, I'm going to Vegas with like, and her 2 friends, and they're great. They're going to have an amazing time. And it's like, they've already decided what they're going to wear. So it's like, and it's only kismet that the guy who helped launch Jimmy's career with me, my co-hosting partner in crime, other than you, Biff, Joe's going to go with me.
Cool.
Now, the only problem is the show is the 13th or the 14th of May. FanDuel has it at 2-1 odds. There's going to be a writer's strike on May 1st.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. That's right. I've been hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm waiting for some sort of catastrophe or shoe to drop where I don't get to go see Saturday Night Live, which is fine. I do like holding on to the dream. I was on TV once, and that's enough. So I mean, not that I would be on TV, but I don't. Shut up, Joe. Anyway, it's fine, but we'll
It's
see what
live.
happens.
It's live TV. You might be. Hey, remember the episode where some guy got thrown off the balcony onto the set? And, no. So we will find out if that is going to happen. The other
but
thing.
live TV is cool though. I mean, obviously you've been to a few, right? But I mean, I've been to one, and I've been to a Letterman. When Letterman was in New York, he did a week in LA in the early 80s, like maybe 84 or 85 or so. And I went to one of those shows. And and I guess, it's all that stuff that happens, during the commercial break. That's really, really the fun part, right? So,
yeah, I went to a Conan O'Brien taping in 1995.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that was fun.
So I don't know if I'm going to be given the option, but you can get tickets for the run through, which is a half hour longer because
right.
They cut 2 or 3 skits.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't mind going to the taping at 5, seeing the run through, go back to the hotel, get a nap in because I'm going to leave the house at 11 in the morning and be partying at 6 a.m. still and then drive home. So we'll see. The other thing that I'm going to this week, I've been pushing it off all season. I have a friend who's been inviting me. He's been inviting me. I was going to go see Mr. T at the mall. Then I said, I'll go again a little later. That's a reference for Joe. I'm going to game 1 of the Bruins Stanley Cup
cool.
drive. And because I put on a couple pounds and I don't really, have
about 2 seats
jerseys. Biff, it's me. When do I buy things? People take me to these things. Right. So I called our friend Sully and I'm like, dude, I need a jersey for the game. And he works out of the house. He's like, yeah, come get it. If I'm on a call, just come in. It's down, which I love. I love the friendships with guys. It's like, I'm going to leave it on chair downstairs. Just come get it. Go. There's food in the fridge.
Don't look at me.
But he's there and he hands me it. And it's a Winter Classic Marchand jersey that he got.
Nice.
And I'm like, the deal, right? And I had told Ellen what the deal was without telling Sully. And he goes, if they win, you keep it for the playoffs. You have to wear it every game. And if they win the cup, and he just put his head down, it's like, it's your jersey. Yes, I know.
He knows the rules.
I know how this works. It's like because I can't give it back if they win when I go on Monday.
Well, it's a good thing that New England-based teams have a great record when they have a record-breaking regular season on. And everybody expects them to win the championship.
They're not going to get knocked out of the first round by the
Florida Panthers.
It's funny because part of me thought, you know what? Do I be a dick and say, stuff is going on. Can I thank you so much, but can I go the second round? Can I go the third round? But in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm going. For all the awfulness that just came out of you.
No, they're not going to lose to Florida.
But at the same time, I thought, well, maybe he thinks the deal is, Jacques went to game 1 and they won. I have to bring him to every game because this guy has it's management's previous boss, the guy who owns all the Paneras.
Right.
So and he's a great guy. Really, I mean, so I am. I'm
so
really.
It'd be funny if if the Panera guy takes you to these games and the Bruins end up losing to the Rangers featuring, Artemi Panarin, who they call the bread man because his name sounds like Panera.
Oh, that would be awful. You're a bad person, Biff. And okay. Oh, I want to touch on one thing because Biff, Joe mentioned the Kowloon. Biff, do you know the Kowloon restaurant just outside of Boston in Revere on Route 1?
No clue.
Okay, it's this Chinese restaurant. It has been there, I want to say 50 years.
Okay.
It's been there at least 45 years, 50 years. I've only been there a couple times in my life. Haven't been there in 35 years, let's say. I mean, I've been a vegetarian since 88. Why do I know that the name of the owner is Andy Wong? I'll tell you why. Because Andy Wong, and they even had it on an episode of Young Rock, this guy since she's opened the Kowloon restaurant, is the world's biggest wrestling fans. And there's a couple tier 2 sports broadcasters in this town who live for wrestling. Like they're the weekend guys on 98.5 The Sports Hub. And they've been the fill-in weekend guys for 20 years. They're best friends with Andy Wong. They travel around the country.
Okay.
But all the wrestlers, when they come to town, and we're talking back in the heyday, we're talking Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. Because if you know anything about wrestling, especially, well, even now, but especially then, wrestlers didn't make a ton of money, getting free, which is really funny.
Yeah.
And a sidebar. There was an episode of Young Rock. Put this on the list of people that I've hung out with that I didn't know. I hung out with Rock for a week. Didn't know that. First,
before he was the guy, right? I guess
the first year, because he had a whole episode just recently about how he got into TV, and the second thing he did was that '70s show, and I remember. Because I went to the set every day, and so I will do a whole sideshow about what their life was, how you drive yourself from you getting done in Poughkeepsie, New York, and if you can make it to Aurora, Chicago, Illinois the next night, you can make another $200 spending $50 on the gas to get there. So 3 wrestlers drive from point. But anyway, so the Kowloon has been there for absolutely ever. All the wrestlers live for this guy. They live for the place. And just the other day, and I only saw this because it was on the news. I get the tail end of the news just before Stephen Colbert goes on. Like I tape the Stephen Colbert show. I watch. John Cena wrestled at a big WWE event last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
He wore the special limited edition Kowloon Nikes. and it's like they only made like 115 pairs, and he wore them at the special day because he hasn't been in the WWE in a while. He came back for a big thing. He wore those shoes, and then one announcer says to the other one's like, yeah, because he's from West Roxbury. He's a Boston guy. And the other one's like, dude, I had no idea John Cena is a Boston kid. It's like, yeah, not only is he a Boston kid, he's a Boston kid who survived because coming up through the ranks as a wrestler, oh my God, I haven't eaten a real meal in 4 days going from town to town, but we're hitting Boston this week, or I could just go and eat free at the Kowloon.
Nice.
So, yeah. So that was interesting. Well, interesting to me. Now we're going to get interesting to everybody else. So let's see, three. I was going to say 3 white guys, 2 white guys and Biff. That's a bad sitcom, past our child, bearing age. Well, we can have kids. And the last week,
I can't bear children anymore. I couldn't bear them 20 years ago. And
so you had a 3-year-old 20 years ago, you bastard. No, but it's like, yeah, Roe versus Wade went away. And this week it's like, yeah, it's one more step closer to the handmaidens. I don't know if you guys want to touch on that at all, but one handpicked judge in West Texas decided, yeah, you know what? I'm going to overrule Congress and overrule the FDA, and we're going to take away women's choice altogether in this country. And go.
I mean, go ahead, Joe.
All I know is that there's a temporary hold on the ban because the Supreme Court is kind of looking into this a little bit further. They're not exactly just going to all willy-nilly give up the I don't know. I think they're putting some thought into this. Or
is this the same Supreme Court that overturned Roe versus Wade that was stayed at law for 51 years? Is that the same court?
I'm just saying that there's a temporary hold on the ban, so they're at least mulling it over, which is, I don't know, maybe this is some sort of political kind of litmus test thing going on. Maybe they're testing the waters to see what the response is going to be. I don't know.
It's just awful, and then not shocking. First of all, I'm shocked that it's getting more press that Clarence Thomas was getting free gifts for the last 40 years from a Republican billionaire. That his wife helping to fund the overthrow of the government. I mean, people were upset about Jenny Thomas trying to overthrow the government in conjunction with the chief of staff, Mark Meadows. But people are more upset that he's getting free boat rides. It's like, it's all awful. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, really?
Let's keep this in perspective, people.
Anyway, speaking of perspective.
I mean, look, bottom line, though, is like at some point, I mean, when are the younger generation really going to start voting as a block to screw these people over? Because the young people don't want to use this.
Biff, the problem is they started to. And so the last two elections, the younger bloc started to. So what did the GOP do in many states? Propose raising the voting age to 21. Oh, wait, we're losing the younger people. So let's raise the voting age. No, look, we'll find out because, just in the past 24 hours before having this little yap fest, DeSantis has not in secret, but not in fanfare, not with the media, but, at 11:30 at night, signed some draconian abortion bill. And just 2 weeks earlier, same thing, with no fanfare, with no people in the room.
He had fanfare. Did you see all the women clapping around his desk when he signed that bill banning abortions after 6 weeks?
And the same thing, just 2 weeks ago, in a private signing ceremony with members of the NRA, basically, you now get a gun when you register for kindergarten in the state of Florida. Like he did oh, no, I don't know if you followed this, Joe. There's no more gun laws in Florida. You don't have to register. You don't have to have a license. You don't have to have any tests, no background checks. If you want a gun and you have a few $100, here you go. Open carry. It's now an open carry state. On the heels of shooting after shooting. And again, didn't do a big public signing.
Who's going to shoot at the hurricanes when they come in if they don't have the guns ready?
Speaking of shooting at hurricanes,
we are
one of my new stand-up things a couple weeks ago. I talk about I've been together with my wife so long, and it's harder and harder to get really special gifts, something from the heart. I can throw money at a gift, but we've been together. How many special gifts can you get after 20 years? Plus, there's so many gift-giving events in the year. There's Valentine's Day, there's her birthday, there's Trump indictments, there's Christmas, and that Trump indictment got a huge laugh, which brings us to the first. We haven't talked about this. We haven't been on the chat fest since Donnie ate scoops. Did a little perp walk. No thoughts. No, I mean,
it's like a lot of things, right? You see a lot of this happen, and then you know what is the guy going to go to jail? If the guy goes to jail, great. Until then, I mean, you know what?
But did you think it was going to? Because we've had talks that we never thought we'd see a perp walk.
I just ran back from the future. He doesn't go to jail. He's not going to jail. It's all a waste of time.
It is no.
I should probably make my time machine a car instead of running.
It is not a waste of time, because the problem is, if the waste of time was Nixon not getting any kind of comeuppance at all, which opened the road for every president to do awful stuff since then. There has to be, but like I said, guys, this was the first one, and I think it was a reverse chicken, and I think every other person was like, "Are we really going to indict him? Who's going to have the guts to indict him first?" And now they're all flooding in. So I'm happy it's starting.
Like I said, listen. You know what? There's a lot of things that kind of start out nicely, and it just doesn't go anywhere. And
like
so
this podcast.
Well, I don't know if it ever started nicely, but whatever. I mean, because you were the first one to talk. So if Joe was the first to talk, then maybe I could defend that statement. But since everything starts, because nothing, stops your floodgates there, I would say that, yeah.
Well, let's open the floodgates of you breaking down some crime and that cesspool.
Japan.
Yakuza written Japan.
So unfortunately, that particular news piece did not involve the reenactment, which is obviously our favorites. But so the premise of this is this guy who is kind of a quasi celebrity, and he was caught with marijuana with the intent to sell. Okay, so now this is in Japan, marijuana's, all drugs, are illegal there and illegal big time. Now this guy had 26 grams, which I've been told is amount people have in their sock drawer quantity. Okay. I'm not, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I've been told, advised this. So he had 26 grams of marijuana. They also found cash that may or may not have been from, these sales, totaling like $700. So 26 grams, $700. And to top it off, this guy used to be in this musical outfit. And the name of the band is Hentai Shinshi. Now, as soon as I said the word hentai, I know that inside Jacques is giggling, because I know Jacques knows all of the Japanese words that possibly pertain to porn. Now, to be fair, hentai is one of those, like bukkake, kind of a normal, semi-normal words. It's less normal than bukkake is, but it's, hentai just means that it's something that's unusual, or it also means anytime something transforms, it's called a hentai, as a noun. But his band.
So I've been watching. So in the 80s, I was watching hentaiers instead of Transformers.
Hentai. Well, there's a
more than meets the eye. Yeah. More than meets the eye.
Yeah. It's actually very well. I'm not going to get into the details, but but the name of his outfit is the Hentai Gentleman. So yeah, and so this guy from Hentai Gentleman selling pot getting arrested. So that was
it's also a subcategory on YouPorn. So the Hentai Gentleman.
So when I saw, one of my favorite things is when I used to walk in the locker room and ask Scotty Black, it's like, Scotty, what's the Japanese word for bukkake? And just the look of why? Why? There's another room I can be dressing in, and I choose to dress in. This is me. This is my fault. This is on me. No, but when I saw the and I don't know if you got a chance to look at the video, they lay it out like all the big drug busts on one of the tables.
Yeah. And it's really sad when they're like, if you know the denominations, right? There's like 12 bills, right?
What was sad is like they have his ashtray in a Ziploc bag with all the butts. I'm like, that's evidence. It's like, what? I don't know what this heinous crime was, but it looked, and it reminded me. Ron White has this great bit about he got busted with an ounce of cocaine, cocaine, an ounce of weed. He's like, when I'm down to an ounce of weed, I'm out of weed.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I think I have more money than that in my wallet. And it's like,
how much did Paul McCartney get put away for?
Hey, you know what? I kind of not much, but so going back to 1 ounce, I just did the Google lookup. 1 ounce equals 28 grams. So literally, he had an ounce of pot.
Oh, okay. Wow. So do they put it next to like a 100 yen piece as a frame of reference?
They had it in a bag. It looked, what it looked like? It looked like so I get these bags of Mexican oregano from the supermarkets, and I put it into one of these sandwich bags, and it kind of looked like a small version of that. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not impressed. Should I be? Is this a big crime? But again, you say,
it would be great if they put it like on the floor in the middle of like a huge empty room with like a guy like all proud of his bust.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, when you've lived in, because I've lived in Hawaii, and back in the day they had this thing called the Operation Green Harvest, and that was impressive because they literally had they went into the jungles in the mountains on Oahu, and they basically cut down all these marijuana plants. And then what do? They bring it all into this open field and light it on fire. And there's like a circle of like 20 cops protecting and making sure that nobody goes near that bonfire.
Yeah. Yep.
But, like it's a bonfire. It's so yeah.
Right. They're protecting the smoke that's coming off the marijuana burning.
We don't want the public going anywhere near that.
We're inhaling this for the public.
They have to keep that away from the public.
It's a human shield.
That's right. Public
pots.
There's a health safety concern.
And now,
hey Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
Wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
All right, so I here we go.
Here we go.
All right, this is just right off.
Oh, you. I'm
Right
just
off the old bean. Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? All those nights where you've got no lights and the check is in the mail. And your little angel hung the cat up by its tail. You know what you did, cat. And the third fiance didn't show. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. Finally tonight, you want to be where you can see troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. They all know your name. Roll out of bed. Mr. Coffee's dead. The morning's looking bright. And your shrink ran off to Europe and didn't even write. And your husband wants to be a girl. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Be glad there's one place in the world where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to go where people know people are all the same. You want to go where everybody supposedly knows your name.
That's true.
Finally tonight, alcoholism. Hilarious.
Oh, that's one of your top 3 impressions. I'm going to make you do more John Oliver.
I guess I only have 3 impressions then.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
So I'm officially on my 2nd week of absolutely my personal GNP has grinded to let's look at the data, 0. I'm week 2 into Resident Evil 4, the remake. Yeah, it's like every waking moment, because that I can, and it's usually the oldest one. I can't call him the little guy anymore, because he's bigger than me. It's like, all right, he's going to bed. It's 10 o'clock. Management's going to bed at 11:30. Okay, I can play till 3 in the morning. Then I'm up at 6:30 to get them to school, and then come home and play till he gets home from school at 3.
What percentage are you at?
Oh my god!
I want numbers.
I'm on my 6th playthrough, so I think I'm not going to get all the mercenary side mission trophies, but I have all but 2 of the regular trophies from the whole game, like the regular game through. And it's I've played it enough, and Joe will get this reference. I've played it enough where I was able to unlock the Infinity rocket launcher. So yeah, so I got my 10,000 hours.
So coincidentally, I went through a really, really, really heavy stretch of really, really awful, work related stuff. Just I mean, I'm not nothing bad about the clients. It's just the work itself was just brutal and hard. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna do something fun. So I had my progeny, open up his PlayStation, and because I bought the Resident Evil 2 a long time ago, so I tried playing it. And you know what? This geezer cannot, I haven't played video games in 30 years, and it's like, but your controls are hard. So I got down to killing one zombie, and I said, I think I need to practice a little.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like riding a bike with 7 buttons on each
Right.
On each handlebar. It's pretty complicated and daunting if you haven't been playing for some time. Yeah,
I felt like it's riding a bike, except that I have to shift the gears with the pinky, on the gear that's on the back of the seat or something. It's really hard. So
yeah, I gave up. I mean, Jacques and I are probably in the same boat where we gave up gaming for over a decade.
Yeah.
And then when it became, a part of the pop culture where it's almost and we have younger kids,
right,
it's hard to avoid gaming, and you kind of want to get back into it. Yeah, you're clunky. You're looking at the controller, like, what is this? Oh,
Yeah.
what does this button do? But then, you spend another 500 hours on
That's
it.
I think that's really the problem is I just not have, obviously I haven't spent the hours, so I have to put in the hours. So
Pretty much.
you know.
You make the time.
that's right.
Yeah.
No, it's a great game, and yeah, it is. These remakes are incredible, and it's getting great reviews. So I feel good that. But it's funny, yeah. When I got back into gaming, and I've talked about it, the PS3 was out. I went to this kid, our Resident Evil, the Carnival, Personnel Podcast senior Resident Evil expert, Chris Berrigan, and he's also got me into Arkham, and I'm watching him play Arkham, and I'm like, I don't know this movie, and it's a game, and he's like, oh, here, you got to try this. He puts the controller in my hand, and I'm like, am I landing the space shuttle? Like when did I become a part of the NASA? This is nothing like Galaga, and,
right.
But yeah,
where do I put the quarters?
Well, speaking of which, I was looking into one of those video game machines also. So the one because now they have those with like 8 gazillion games, right?
Oh, like the stand-up machines?
Stand-up machines.
Oh yeah, the Arcade 1-Up brand. Is that
Right.
what it is?
I don't know
Yeah,
what the brand is, but like some whatever.
Let me make a recommendation, Biff. I might be visiting this summer. The guest room may or may not be open, so I'm recommending you get one. I recommend you ask Joe which kind he gets, but either way, I'll be there. You're welcome.
I have a $600 every game you ever wanted to play machine.
Right,
It's called a Steam Deck, and it's in the
Okay.
palm of my hands. And I never play it.
Is that right?
I will soon. Don't you worry. I said it. The fun part was setting up the Steam Deck, and now
No, yeah.
now it's actually.
I did
slowed
also
down.
see one of those things where like it's just like one of those plug-in things into your TV, and then
Yep.
you have like a PlayStation controller. It looks like. And
Oh,
you just,
right.
right, and it kind of has the same kind of thing where they have every whatever.
Yeah, there's
conceivable.
it's like a knockoff kind of like emulator box.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Joe's happy to give a whole sideshow breakdown of each and every one before you make your
Oh,
purchase.
the lowest listened to podcast ever.
You know what? But hey, for an audience of Biff, he could use your expertise, and now I could use your expertise, Biff. Aside from already starting the podcast with giving me anxiety, which I suffer from, and being a Boston fan since I was born, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Playoffs start. This podcast drops on Monday, the first day of the playoffs. First of all, overall, what were your thoughts of the season? Any real surprises one way or the other wrapping up the NHL season?
I mean, I don't know if there were any like monster surprises aside from the fact that maybe I didn't expect Seattle to make it in. I didn't expect New Jersey to be so good. So I thought New Jersey was one of those, they have a chance to make it in kind of a team. But I really thought that Calgary was going to make it in and not Seattle. And, obviously I was wrong, but whatever. So, yeah. But so, the obviously Bruins is a surprise. And, not that they were, they're a bad team or anything like that, as much as the fact that they started the season with a new coach and they were hurt. So, that was why it was so shocking. But I think other than that, most of them are like kind of the usual suspects.
Who didn't make the playoffs that you thought was going to make it other than Calgary? Was there anybody that you're like, wait, how are they not in it?
Well, it's one of those things where it's really just Calgary only because the East wild card was a kind of a toss up, right? So, I really thought it was the kind of the except for Buffalo who kept it close to the very very end. I thought last. The wildcard spots are going to be a toss-up between the Islanders, the Penguins, Florida, and I thought Detroit, but Detroit fell much earlier. But it's funny, like everybody liked Florida last year, and I didn't like them at all. And they got swept in the first round after a kind of 100, winning the President's Trophy or something like that. So. And I thought that they made themselves worse, and they were, but they managed to make it into the playoffs. So here you go.
I think it's a little sad that, and this is just me, and this is a bias, that there's 7 teams in Canada.
Yeah.
And that 4 of the 7 are on the outside looking in, and yet the 2 Florida teams at fan base, there are honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not being a smart mouth when I say this, but there are tier 1 junior teams across Canada that outdraw the two Florida teams, even in the playoffs.
Well,
And-
maybe Tampa not so much because they've been so good lately, but
But
Yeah.
right, but the Panthers have been.
Panthers are it almost became 5 because Winnipeg almost had like one of the biggest collapses ever, where they were leading the conference.
Right.
I want to say in January, and they got close to to that, missing the playoffs. So,
And as far as the Bruins go, it's everything that you said. So it wasn't a done deal, but most people thought Patrice Bergeron was hanging it up last season.
I didn't think so.
No, here, because he's on a
No.
1-year contract. His contract
Yeah.
was up last year, and people thought but not just because of his age. I mean, he's playing great, but people looked at the roster and said, "Yeah, is he going to come back and grind it out for 80 games to be a second round playoff team?" And then and the mockery of like, oh, maybe they're going to get Krejci back, because Krejci hasn't been in the NHL in a bit. It's like, oh, is that really your big signing? Nick Foligno and Krejci coming back. Oh, great. And you got a new coach. And it's like, and it's like, yeah, what were the real expectations going in? And if you go back and look at what Vegas had it, Vegas didn't have Vegas had Bruins finishing 5th, 6th, a middle of the pack second round team. And for them not to be better, for them to not just be better than that, just to be this much better, like nobody saw this coming. So
no, that's 100% true. But I thought it seemed like all of the signs that I saw said, oh, Bergeron's coming back, because them firing Cassidy is a kind of a message to the players to say that, you know what, we're listening to you guys, because I think that basically he was done. His message was done, and then they had Taylor Hall signed, and I think just if you look at it, the whole Jake DeBrusk dynamics, I thought, they're actually going to try to take care of the players,
right?
So to keep this band together. So that's why I thought that Bergeron was coming back for sure.
So, that's a great thing. Here's Jake DeBrusk, an absolute top tier third line guy and a really good second line guy, depending on what your lineup is. And he's asking publicly to be traded last year.
Yeah.
And he comes back and has I feel bad because Foligno, he's one of those role players. He's better than Sean Thornton, but he's one of those guys where, he got injured the last 2 months, the last 6 weeks. He was on pace to have a career year. Like 11 different Bruins had career years. But again, we knew that Marchand was going to miss the first 2 months. We knew. So your top
McAvoy was out. Also,
right. Your number one D is going to miss a month or two to start the season. And then you go like 17-2 without your best winger and best D. No, but so what are your thoughts? Who do you see going to the conference? We won't go ahead to the cup, but who do you see? Any surprises? Do you think there's any 7 seeds upsetting a 2 seed? Who do you see in the conference finals?
Well, this sounds really weird, but I'm thinking it's going to be a Boston Edmonton final.
Wow. If we're jumping ahead to the cup, I would take that because, and maybe we get revenge for ruining my childhood, because 2 of the 3 cups that Gretzky won came at the hands of the Bruins.
Oh, those teams.
Revenge is a dish best served ice cold
with a side of
with a side of prune Danish.
Prune Danish. I knew you would.
But I would say though, the one of the aforementioned teams that almost failed, Winnipeg might be a dangerous team. They have good goaltending. Dallas is also another dangerous team. Good goaltending.
So speaking of good goaltending, I know we talked about this in the text messages, but after the Post Bruins show about a week ago, which, by the way, Dale Arnold, I don't know if you guys know who Dale Arnold, he announced.
No clue.
Dale Arnold is a legend in Boston. He's been part of the sports landscape for 40 years. He was a Bruins announcer for many years. I think he was a guy before Jack Edwards. And then when Jack Edwards came in, he went into the studio. But when sports radio became a thing, a real thing in the early 90s, he was part of it. He announced everybody knew who worked with him, but they kept it under wraps. The last home game, they announced that he announced he was retiring. They had this great tribute. I actually tweeted at him and got a response, which is nice. Yeah, like when I worked a summer job at MIT, I would literally be on hold on a payphone, waiting once or twice a week to talk to him and Eddie Endelman. But no, but they were talking. I don't know if it was the Atlantic, but some really big publication. And then they said, hey, this came out 2 or 3 days ago. And here's 3 other really prominent hockey publications or talking heads who are now flaunting that no, Linus Ullmark is not the Vezina winner, that it is. And who's the Winnipeg goalie?
Connor Hellebuck.
Because they're like, yeah, the Bruins are a wagon. They were going to get into the playoffs without him, but
no.
Right. And I'm like, no, the Bruins are great because of him.
So that's the thing about it is that, there are people that want to have this contrarian narrative, but the reason why I say Linus Ullmark, not just because he's going to win it, because if you know anything about the way the Vezina is, if the GMs love winners, and you look, like you said, he got the Triple Crown. How do you not give it to that guy, right? But on top of that, even if you look at the advanced stats, his advanced stats are actually really, really good. One of the measurements is this thing called goal saved above average, and what that means is that how many chances did you save on where a goal was expected, and
right,
he's like tops in the league by a mile there. What that means is that the Boston Bruins are still giving up chances, and he is stopping them, and that's so yeah,
the advanced analytics, his winning percentage. Well, first of all, I mean, you won 40 games. You know what I mean? He won like 48, 49 games.
Yeah, I mean, so wins is a kind of a, just like for pitchers, it's kind of not a great, but it's the other stats,
against teams with winning records. Yeah. He's like it's funny because he only has like 4 or 5 losses, and it's the Patriots saying, oh, the Patriots are 14-2. Wait a minute, Miami was 4-12 and they beat the Patriots twice this year. It
is that weird thing where I think Bruins have like 2 road losses against Western Conference teams on the road, and for some reason the 2 losses are like the Coyotes and the Blackhawks or something.
Like awful, like the Coyote game. But the other thing, the mark against Linus is, well, their backup goalie is like 18-4 with like 3 shutouts. So you know what I mean? It's like even your backups, but I think he gets it.
There's no, like I sent you the odds, right? Negative 4,000 is the FanDuel odds on him winning, winning the Vezina.
And just before we move on from sports, I don't know if you guys caught this, but basically the Dallas Mavericks got fined for tanking the other night. They're trying to. And
NBA has been doing this. This, I think, started with San Antonio, right? And we should talk about San Antonio too because of Greg Popovich. But San Antonio, he's the one that started to rest his players for the stretch run, and people got pissed off because when they're on the road on the East, right? San Antonio visits the East Coast teams once a year, and if they don't see Duncan on the roster, it's like, oh, I paid this money to see Tim Duncan, and he's not on, right? A lot of that stuff. So NBA is trying to legislate the, resting of the players stuff, but I think it's just, having to do with a lot of that really.
Well, there's resting players for the playoffs, which for the last three games, I was really hoping that I didn't know more than 4 Bruins. That they were calling up the prophet. It's like, don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. Don't get hurt. But no, I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that. But Popovich, let's talk about that for a second. That guy, a great coach. His record speaks for itself, but you tell me somebody in his position who has been more outspoken about social justice things his last regular season presser, he spends his 10 minutes basically talking about, the gun issues and, essentially how we have to legislate some kind of a gun control so that people stop dying from this. Right. I mean, so obviously, good on him, but it is one of the areas where
NHL is not the best. There's a few guys that are pretty good, and one of them just got fired. So, Brian Burke was a great defenders of the, LGBTQIA community. His son died. He has a son who was gay that died, and just there's so much that he does, in his honor, in terms of what they do. And so when we had these issues, when the NHL players went on a crap mode on the Pride nights, he stood out there and said, yeah, this stuff is important. These guys suck.
And you need those voices from the top, like
guys.
speaking
Yeah.
up. You really do.
Yeah.
What else we need is for me to give a good shout out to my pal Joe, who talk about putting in his 10,000 hours, has curated his Plex account. And when I saw Sully the other day, Sully was delighted to hear that you are the kindred spirit. And when I was telling him what we were watching, he was it was a tear in the eye. You know what I mean?
Great.
He was like just awesome.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that my efforts aren't going unnoticed. I'm glad that, I'm getting accolades from my Plex peers, my Plex pals, if you will. So yeah, that's nice. I'm also now, our friend Peter, who is on the Muppet podcast and stuff. So he gifted me years ago, his collection, a copy of his collection of like every theatrical cartoon ever, literally, like
even the banned ones. Even the banned ones.
Yeah. And so, but they were on I burned them to 75 Blu-rays, and then I didn't really watch them because they were on 75 Blu-rays. Now I've digitized them from the Blu-rays to a hard drive, and I'm now sorting through them to maybe put them on a Plex server. So Jacques, you might have more cartoons to watch in the near future.
Even the band ones that really, really, really go at Biff's grandfather hardcore.
Maybe. Let's just say, Bugs Bunny has some things to say to some people during a certain period of time. Yes, all bases will be covered, including baseball Bugs, one of my favorites of all time. First base, Bugs Bunny. Second base, Bugs Bunny. Third base, Bugs Bunny. Shortstop, Bugs Bunny.
There's nothing in the rule book
that says an elephant can't pitch. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be wasting more of my precious middle age going through those files and making them available for you to watch, even though all of them are pretty much available to watch on YouTube. Like you can just go on YouTube and look up, I want to watch Baseball Bugs. You type it in on the Google. There you are.
Yeah, but so Joe was going to come over last weekend because management was supposed to be in Chicago for 2 weeks. The family she works for was fine. Everybody's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Everybody's fine. But the extended...
How are you?
How are you? Look, we're going to have company. The extended family that they were visiting had a COVID scare, and so she had to come home from the trip a few days early, which was always great to see my wife. Always happy to see her come home a few days early. Just maybe not on the weekend that Joe was going to come over and we were going to watch more episodes of Fish and Barney Miller and Card Sharks featuring Bob Eubanks going one-on-one with Alex Trebek.
Right.
and
you want to see Jim Lang take on Tom Kennedy? Then you are in for a treat.
So I'll log on to my Plex account if I'm able to make it out to Phoenix. But when I'm at your place this summer, Biff, and we're playing on that emulator down in the guest room, while one of us is on the game, the other one can be enjoying the gifts of Joe's curated, painstakingly curated Plex account. The only other thing that I'll talk about that I'm watching is I watched the season finale of Shrinking, Apple TV Plus, Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. Absolutely fantastic. It's 8 episodes. I think it's an 8 or 10 episode show. again, when Seagal, when Seagal came up with it, Siegel came up with it. Sorry, and they're going over like the wish list. He's like, "Who would you like in this role?" He's like, "Harrison Ford," but let's be realistic. Yeah, we'll call him. And he's like, "Wait," he said, "Yes." It's fantastic. It is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely fantastic. I can't say anything except, oh, I cannot wait for season 2. Like if there's not a season 2 because there's a writer strike and just shows go away, I will riot. I honestly, I don't know who will pay attention to me turning over the table and writing in my own office, but I will.
Don't worry, we don't need a writer. We don't, if the writers go on strike, we'll have plenty of reality shows to watch on the brand new Max app. You know that the HBO Max is now becoming Max because they're merging with Discovery. So Discovery's reality programming is going to now be available on the what used to be HBO Max app and now just called Max. And you know what? If that means losing all those Looney Tunes cartoons that were on there, I don't care. I have them on my Plex account, so I'm covered. But if that means less DC, I don't know. I don't know how computers work. I don't know how many, if they have like a limited number of hard drives over in the Max warehouse, if they have to make room, you know what I mean? I don't know how that's going to, I don't know what type of programming is going to now be suggested to Max viewers.
Well, I will tell you, guest of the podcast, our friend Ronick, has been very dismayed the last 6 months. The contraction of these big conglomerates and so many people that she's worked with for 20 plus years through the different Discovery apparatuses are now losing. Like, dude, they have like 7 people working. The few people that they bring back, it's always a 3-year contract. Generally, it's a 3-year window. There are people now. We're talking the decision makers. We're talking the mid 6-figure, low 7-figure. They're all getting 3-month contracts over like
confounded. I'm offering you a 3-month contract starting today. Now.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so we will. Are you watching anything, Biff, or is it just all NHL all the time?
But isn't it kind of? Well, it is. It has been a lot of NHL, but no, but isn't it kind of ironic that while all of this happening in the background, like it seems like the product that's coming out is as good as it's ever been, right? Isn't that true?
Better. I mean, when you honestly, when you got, I mean, just like I said, I mean, you Netflix, 10 years ago started their own content, and their original content was doing so good that Amazon Prime's like, hey, wait a minute, we have this thing called The Boys and Miss Maisel and all these stuff, and then Hulu comes out, and Hulu has, so many great shows, and then and Apple TV Plus. I mean, but I think that's the one over the last year with like Maida Rudolph show, Lewd, I watched, Shrinking, Ted Lasso. There's the production value, of course, HBO. I'm sorry, Disney Plus with all the Marvel things and the Mandalorian and stuff. Yeah, the content is great. So.
And there's the Marvel series coming out this year, right?
Yeah. There's a couple seasons coming out of different shows and stuff. So yeah, no, I'm here for all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like for the layperson, right? It's like. Where's the tragedy? It's like, who cares if these execs or whatever are getting like, if the product is better than it's ever been, that's, it almost seems to, kind of prove their point that, obviously we don't need these guys because they've been doing this for years now, right? The last 25 years, this is what they've been doing, right? How could they be doing all this cutting and the product get better if it wasn't the right decision, right? So for the layperson, I think these are kind of going to get a cut,
Well, so here's the problem that, like I said, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. The problem Ronick and people in our shoes have, doing development is they're now expecting you as the content provider to provide twice as much content for half the budget. And so many people, so it's a tipping point. It's one of those things. It's like, we can cut corners to the point where, but they are the brain drain of it. It's like, okay, she used to sell a show and it was 20 hours of content, 1-hour episodes. Here's what we're giving you. Well, now you have to have, 20 hours of content, but we need another 15 hours of web content. We need another, 5 hours of out of the same budget, all
Right,
that
yeah.
stuff. It's like, oh, we need this. So it's getting into the weeds, but yeah. Let's let's wrap things up with a parenting tip. What do you guys got?
You know what? I say, as your children grow and they have to become adults, make sure you teach them a lot of the fundamentals, like at least once. And my at least once teaching actually happened last year, where last year I taught my son to go online and complete his own taxes. That way I don't have to ever help him with it ever again. And this year I said, hey, did you do your taxes? And he goes, yeah, yep, got it done. Like, because for him it's just filling out web forms and it's all done. And so he just had to know that he had to do it. And then now, I never have to worry about that ever again.
He just had the one W-2 last year.
Right.
Yeah, so it's 10 minutes and he probably gets
Right,
money coming
right.
back. Good, but good. No,
But
That's
he
great.
just has to know that he has to do it, right? And now he knows he has to do this, and that's great. So
I have a similar parenting tip.
Yeah.
It's piggybacking off of yours, Biff. Is I make my kids do my taxes,
okay.
and I think it's really a learning experience for all of us. I'll be going away for a while.
So yeah, so is a New York DA filing against you? Are we going to be seeing you do a?
Many people are saying I won't be on the podcast for much longer.
What is this charitable contribution?
They're called
$400,000.
authorities.
Who are these hentai gentlemen? Anyway,
So my parenting tip. So I signed the
Hentai
boys-
Gentleman LLC.
Incorporated Limited, anyways, in the state of Delaware. So my parenting tip is, yeah, dummy, this is why I sign you up for stuff. So forever, we've abused the library system when the boys were younger, all the great programs and the art programs, and come take ukulele lessons. I've signed the boys up for everything and anything, expose them to stuff, especially if it's free. The recreation department of Lowell, we talked about it. My oldest son got his lifeguard training. I mean, it was honestly 40 hours of first aid and CPR and in the water lifeguard training, and now he has his license so he can work at the summer pool making $20 an hour this summer. It's great.
There you
And
go. That's awesome.
It's all through the town. So the little guy, his life is football, FUT,
Yeah.
football,
Yep.
and
with an accent.
yeah, is it an umlaut? An accent. Yeah. So so it is. I mean, he was living in his custom made Manchester jersey, which, by the way, Biff, I haven't told him, depends on what our travel schedule is. Manchester United is doing a world tour for the first time. Manchester United is playing down in San Diego in July. They're doing a friendly down in July, and if we're there, I'm going to take him. Anyways, but now
Manchester, New Hampshire's right up there. Why don't they? It's a synergy. What are they
And
doing?
they're gonna go to a friendlies all the way in San Diego. Don't you have friendlies all
They
over?
have
you live
friendlies
there?
all over the East Coast.
no, they
Come
don't.
on.
No, they don't. That's another podcast for another day. They don't have friendlies. I hate you both. Anyways, so my thing is, I sign him up for stuff all the time, and he's a little happy because the high school football coach, soccer coach, a couple weeks ago ran a 2 Saturday camp. It went so well, they're going to do a 2 more Saturday camps. And he was happy. And as soon as he found out about this camp, because he's playing on a team now in Southern New Hampshire, he loves it. He does. He sleeps in his jersey. He's so proud of it. I'm really happy. It's weird to have a sports kid all of a sudden, but he absolutely loves it. Unfortunately, he's a weirdo who wants to be, a goalkeeper. You know what fucking weirdos those guys are. Anyways, and so he wants his friend to join the team. And now there's he wants his friend to join the team. I sent him all the stuff. His friend is great, and the kids are Brazilian descent. He's like, honestly, I don't know if it's the water. I don't know if it's DNA. This 11-year-old can just... like it's like watching poetry. It's like, it's like, anyways. So I sent the link and to the free stuff. And I'm the free Uber driver for his friends. There's two. They pick him up. They love it. All this. It's great. Well, now he wants him to join this team that he's on. And I'm like, yeah, I can pick him up and drop him off. I send the link. And then when he finds out, it's like, oh, I didn't know the practice is because he called me and says it's $75. Oh. I didn't know it cost that much. And it's like, in our world, we're lucky that $75 ain't a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm like, hey, it's cool, blah, blah, blah. I'll talk to the coach, which means I'm going to pay for it. You're right. But the thing is, he now realizes, and he said that, he goes, but the stuff we're doing at the high school, that's free, right? I'm like, it is free. He goes, is that why you sign us up for all that stuff? I'm like, it is why I sign you up for all that. If you're going to take something and find out you don't like it, it's like, have it be on somebody else's dime, take advantage of. So he's finally starting to get it. It's like,
that's socialism.
Right.
Now I get it.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I mean, and these programs are absolutely great. I mean, I can go on, and I've talked about the other things that they've got. Look, they don't like tennis, but they got to take 8 weeks of, well, it was once a week. It wasn't like, 4 hours a day, but they've done these science camps over the summer that is 4 hours a day. And it's ULOL kids coming in, like grad students who have to do like community service. So they're great.
Right. Some kind of, community outreach.
Community
service make it sound like they were like grad students that got arrested, and now they have to do community.
Well, I mean,
community outreach.
They were caught with 28 grams of fun.
28 grams.
So maybe
26.
For a couple years, every other Wednesday, I drove them all the way to Tufts University because the grad engineering kids, they had part of getting their degree, they had to teach kids engineering.
Yeah.
And they did Lego robotics and all this stuff. And it was one of those things where, you look up what those courses cost in the summer. It's like, dude, every time we go there, it would have been $200 each one of you guys. So my parenting tip is, stick with it. You know what I mean? It's like sooner or later, they're going to figure out. It's like, oh, crap. I am white and privileged.
There you go. There you go.
So there we go. I'm done.
Okay. So am I. Anybody else going to talk? Not me.
Okay. Now it's Joe's time to shine. Well, suddenly I've become quite important. Now take this Ernie Bishop, the taxi driver that drives around all day sitting around on his brains. Anyway, we sure had fun today. I'm sure you did too. You got to listen to us just ramble on about all sorts of topics. We didn't even cover the Super Mario Brothers movie that I saw with the kids this week. That was a fun time. It deserved all of the money that it made. It was a fine movie. We won't get into it now. We'll save that for our next sideshow, where Joe just talks about the Super Mario. Yeah, he wrote sideshow Jacques wrote sideshow on a board and then showed it to me. So yeah, we're gonna do a sideshow about the Super Mario movie, or not. But in any case, I sure enjoyed this time we had together, and I'm glad we had this time together. Go Bruins. Go Boston Marathoners. I don't know who's going to win the marathon this year. I was wrong every other year. It was not a guy from South Boston. It was just not, he was not going to pull it off.
South Africa, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. But no, I have to get my act together. But thankfully, DraftKings will allow me to easily bet on the sure winner. Use promo code Sideshow Carnival Personnel for $20 toward your first bet on DraftKings.com or FanDuel or BetMGM or LoseMyHouse.com or CollegeSchmollege.com or Jesus fucking Christ, I have a problem. I need help.com. Man, yeah. Anyways, that's on my retirement plan, by the way. It's just putting it all on red. Hello, Vegas. All right, I'll write you a check. Anyway, don't forget. Save us from rapists. Take all jobs.
sure, but that's why they're leaving the homes that they've got, where everyone's dying from drugs, noise, violence. Who else sanctions? Just doing business, it's supplying demand. Strict capitalism, the filling of niche, filling prescriptions from corporate doctors, pushing Purdue forward. Cause America's sick, we're killing ourselves and we don't give a shit. Just pissed off as hell and our leaders are friends. Swilling old frat boys who have been douchebag dads. And they're building a wall to save us from rapists. They'll take all the jobs, then live on welfare and go out to shoot cops, make us buy all kinds of drugs we don't want. 'Cause they're their own brains. Not awful. I fucked up several times.